Forecasting late spring weather in Pennsylvania is often difficult. This April, we saw unusual levels of rain and warmth. Normally, I'd wait until early to mid-May to cut the grass for the first time, but not this year. Although I had to start yard work early, I'm thankful it's not snowing. Last year, at this time, we had a snowstorm that left 15 centimeters of snow, so I prefer the early mowing to dealing with snow any day. Also, with tax season over, it's nice to enjoy the sunshine outside. My home has a unique feature, a sharp drop in the backyard that leads to a small creek and woods. During building, they added fill to make the front of the house level with the street, creating a steep drop partway up the side. As a result, the basement, completely enclosed at the front, opens at the back. This design let me install a double door for services, ideal for storing my lawnmower and other garden tools without filling up the garage. It's one of the parts of the house I like most. After finishing the yard work and storing everything, I quickly went upstairs to take a shower. Allergies to grass make me eager to clean up. Climbing the stairs, I heard my wife's voice from the front of the house, where I had been mowing. Seeing her friend's car, I expected to hear voices, but their conversation made me stop with my hand on the door handle. Let me introduce myself. I'm Robert Crane, but I go by Bob. In school, they called me Hogan, after Robert Crane, the actor in Hogan's Heroes. While I was okay with the nickname, the show was before my time, so it's not really a current reference. With a degree in accounting from the University of Pennsylvania, I quickly got my CPA and now lead audit teams at a well-known firm in Philadelphia. It's not the most exciting job, but it pays well and gives me insight into various businesses. My skill in forensic analytics, finding financial trails to expose fraud and money laundering, has made me a recognized expert. I've even worked with the FBI on 2 cases. My wife, Kelly, studied political science and business with plans to go to law school when we first met in our freshman year. I was sitting, waiting for class to start when she walked in. Kelly was tall and slim, like a ballerina but with a fuller chest. Her long strawberry blonde hair fell over her bare shoulders, a truly eye-catching sight. She wore a pretty sundress with sandals that showed off her beautiful legs, smooth and soft. Her mix of innocence and charm was very strong, instantly attracting me. Unfortunately, Kelly didn't sit next to me, nor was she in my group project. It took me 4 weeks to gather the courage to talk to her and start a conversation with a silly joke, which made her laugh loudly. We talked more, and I finally asked her to have coffee after class. "I've been waiting for you to ask that for 4 weeks, she answered with a smile. During our last 2 years of college, we were always together. Initially, our parents had doubts about us, but they accepted our relationship after seeing our strong commitment. I couldn't imagine things getting better, but they did. After graduation, I got a job at a well-known accounting firm in Philadelphia with a great salary for a 22-year-old just out of college. Kelly got into the University of Pennsylvania Law School, and we stayed in our college apartment. I also started my MBA, funded by my employer, and commuted to work on SEPTA, which saved us from needing a car and cut costs. 3 years later, Kelly finished law school, and I proposed at a birthday dinner at Morton's Steakhouse in Rittenhouse Square. We got married 6 months after that. Kelly began working as a deputy district attorney in Bucks County, north of Philadelphia. We bought a house in Doylestown, the county seat with a courthouse and good train access, which made our commutes long but better than dealing with traffic on the Schuylkill Expressway or I-95. With her mom's help, Kelly found a good starter home with 3 bedrooms, one for an office with 2 desks, a guest room, and our main bedroom. Being close to her parents' house also made the location attractive, as Kelly saw it as a possible nanny solution when we started a family. As an only child who always wanted siblings, I was excited about this new phase. We had talked about having kids since our freshman year and agreed to wait until Kelly was settled in her career. But finally, the time came, and 2 nights ago, we decided to stop Kelly's birth control to start trying for a baby. I was overjoyed. Then, I heard something that made me stop, my hand on the door handle. "Hogan and I decided it was time for me to get pregnant," Kelly happily told her friend Olivia Watkins. Their loud, excited screams reminded me of the sad sight of whales accidentally beaching themselves on the Jersey shore in their eager rush. Standing on the stairs, I smiled at their excitement, which matched my own as I looked forward to being a dad. As I went to grab the pen again, a comment broke my happiness. "This is wonderful, Kel," Olivia remarked. "But what about Paul? The situation downstairs?" "Hush," Kelly quickly replied. "Hogan is outside mowing the lawn." After a short pause, I imagined her looking around, expecting me to be nearby. Then she added, "I've already told Paul that I'm ending the affair. He understands. With Grossman retiring as senator, Paul sees a chance for himself. Being caught in an affair with a married staffer wouldn't look good. It's really that straightforward. 3 sentences shattered my world. Paul Evans, Kelly's boss at the DA's office, was a 40-year-old widower with a daughter named Barbara. His wife, Anne, had died of breast cancer, making him a single dad. Paul was deeply involved in politics, and Kelly often shared stories about his political tactics to climb higher. So you're just quitting like that? You've been involved for 6 months and now you're just stopping? Olivia's doubtful tone angered me. She was a former classmate from Penn State, someone I knew before Kelly. Despite Kelly and Olivia's close friendship, I thought Olivia was still my friend. It seems I was wrong. "Stop it!" Kelly laughed, brushing off Olivia's teasing. "You're terrible. Paul was intense, but he was too much for me. I love Hogan, and I want to stay true and committed as we start our family. How many more stereotypes are we going to joke about?" I had a thought. All I need for complete happiness is to come home, see an unknown car in the driveway, and find them together in my bed. I wanted to storm into the room, yelling, destroying everything. But I was stuck, shocked, my heart pounding in my ears. "Quitting just like that?" Olivia asked, leading to another laugh from Kelly. "Not exactly," she admitted. "I have a conference with Paul in Pittsburgh next week. That will be our goodbye. I'll miss the closeness, but Hogan and the baby are my priorities." I couldn't take it anymore, but I didn't know what to do. I care a lot about Kelly, yet this was tearing me apart. My business mind kicked in. I needed to step back and think strategically. As I walked up the stairs, I considered my options. I opened the door and walked into the kitchen. Kelly and Olivia were there drinking tea. Was that guilt on Kelly's face? "Honey, are you okay?" she asked, her voice full of concern. It was then I noticed tears on my face. "Allergies," I said quietly. "Looks like it's going to be a tough spring. Let's go up and clean up. Just leave those clothes by the bathroom. I'll handle them right away so they don't crowd your closet. Remember, I bought you a new pack of Claritin D last week. It's in the medicine cabinet." "Thanks," I managed to say, heading to the stairs. I needed some space to think. The next morning, Monday came, and I left for an early meeting before Kelly woke up, using it as an excuse to avoid her. Last night, I said I went to bed early because of allergies, hiding my real feelings. Sitting in the car, I thought about what I had learned. On one hand, my wife had cheated, but it seemed over on just a physical level. Some might say I should be okay with this, happy that she plans to be a devoted wife and mom now. However, I keep wondering if she'll cheat again. Could there be more hidden meetings leading to a divorce where Kelly gets the kids, and I end up with the financial stress? As an accountant and business analyst, I'm used to weighing risks and benefits, and I see this situation in the same way. My trust in Kelly is broken. To dismiss her actions as just physical misses the main point. She showed no respect for me as her partner. A cheater knows they are hurting their spouse. Otherwise, they would be honest from the beginning. While I might never get over her affair with Paul, if she had told me herself, it would have at least shown some respect. Kelly's behavior showed how little she values me. Though I was at work physically, my mind was busy figuring out what to do next. Besides overhearing that talk, I had no proof, nor had I noticed any different behavior over the past 6 months when she was supposedly cheating. Confronting her without evidence could be pointless and wouldn't help much. Kelly would deny everything. Paul Evans would deny everything. Taking any legal steps would be financially ruinous, as every judge, politician, and lawyer nearby knew Evans. I would have faced huge challenges in clearing my name. The idea of moving and starting over came to mind, but our house was a problem, making it hard to leave. Kelly couldn't pay for it alone with her salary, and we didn't have much equity. Trying to sell the house quickly to prevent foreclosure seemed unlikely given the current market. Such a step would hurt our credit scores, which is especially bad for a CPA looking for a job. It's tough to be trusted with other people's money when you can't handle your own. I needed solid proof before making any moves. I believed I could gather evidence, but it unexpectedly came from an unlikely source. 3 days later, despite my efforts, I found no supporting evidence. Kelly's personal laptop yielded nothing, and no incriminating items were found hidden away. Then Kelly called, inviting us to a political announcement party at Paul Evans's house on Friday night. I assumed it would be his Senate candidacy announcement, yet I still lacked proof. Frustrated, we arrived at Evans's lavish mansion near Washington Crossing, complete with a backyard horse farm and a large tent for guests. As we entered, there stood Paul Evans, arrogantly greeting guests as if he were royalty. As a widower, Evans lacked a wife to fulfill hostess duties, so he clearly enlisted his 21-year-old daughter for the role. She stood beside him, greeting guests as if it were second nature. When our turn came, Evans beamed at Kelly, saying, "Kelly, you've done it. How wonderful." He gave my wife a chaste kiss on the cheek before turning to me. "Robert, good to see you again. I'd be lost without your wife, but it seems I'll have to give her up soon when you start expanding your family." He chuckled at his own jest. "Just give her back when you're done and no hard feelings." More laughter ensued. Kelly blushed slightly, and I wanted to throttle the grinning fool. I caught his hint, which he seemed to think flew over my head. "Who knows what the future holds?" I replied, tone flat and neutral, neither hostile nor friendly, mirroring how I delivered the audit results. Evans flushed a bit, and Kelly nudged me, murmuring something about being impolite. Smoothly moving on to the next guest, Evans left us alone with his daughter. Kelly was undeniably beautiful, but Barbara Evans was breathtaking. Even in my simmering anger, I couldn't help but notice. Her auburn hair and radiant smile evoked thoughts of a young Maureen O'Hara. If Kelly resembled a voluptuous ballerina, Barbara looked like she belonged on a swimsuit calendar alongside Kate Upton. She possessed the kind of beauty, physique, hair, and skin that photographers dreamed of and often had to enhance with Photoshop. Paul Evans had the quintessential political family, a triple threat. He appeared tailor-made for the roles of wise statesman and family man. Losing his wife to cancer provided him with the perfect spouse, idolized by all, with any detractor risking career destruction. Barbara was a princess, former prom queen, business and law student at Penn State, former gymnast, and now a cheerleader for the university. According to Kelly, Barbara planned to audition for the Eagles cheerleading squad at the next open competition, having just turned 21 with a saintly late mother and a smart, beautiful, photogenic daughter. The press would eat it up on the campaign trail. "Robert!" Barbara exclaimed in an excited tone, embracing me tightly. This wasn't a mere polite hug, it was a full-bodied squeeze, with parts of her pressed against me in the most delightful manner. "You look fantastic. No wonder Kelly's been keeping you all to herself. You never show up to any of our gatherings. You shouldn't overwork yourself. It's not good for your health." Somehow, she managed to say it all in one breath. In less than a second, my fury gave way to utter astonishment. I offered a few polite compliments about her appearance and was about to depart when two realizations struck me. Firstly, Barbara never greeted Kelly. Secondly, what parties was she referring to? Before I could inquire, Kelly swooped in with her own greeting for Barbara, and we had no choice but to yield to the next guests in line. As Kelly and I found a spot to relax, I pondered what Barbara might know. After fixing my wife a drink, I inquired, "What parties was Barbara mentioning?" Kelly simply smiled and waved it off. "She's just teasing, that little brat. Sometimes Paul holds team meetings and strategy sessions here. He claims he thinks better with a drink in hand, and you never know who might be nearby at a bar. Barbara was home a few times when we gathered here. Don't spread it around, but Paul let her have a drink at home before she turned 21. That set my mind racing. This scoundrel might have had carnal relations with my wife right here in his home under the pretext of business meetings. These could even pass as actual meetings where Kelly was the last to leave. Or perhaps she left first and returned after everyone else had departed, preventing suspicion from arising about why she always lingered behind to help her boss tidy up. With his wife deceased and his daughter off at college, he had no need for a discreet hotel room, hence leaving no trace of their encounters. "So Barbara attends your team meetings?" I inquired. Kelly brushed off the query. "No, she was home on a few occasions when her classes were canceled. She's just poking fun at her dad for partying during work hours." She tugged at my hand. "Come on, honey, let's get your young wife a drink." For the next hour, Kelly stuck close to my side. We conversed with some of her colleagues, and a few brought up our plans to start a family, expressing both sadness at potentially losing Kelly for a while and joy for our future. Frankly, I felt a tad embarrassed. How did all these people know about our plans? An hour later, Paul Evans called for everyone's attention, his daughter beaming beside him. He began by thanking everyone for coming, then proceeded to announce his major campaign. Though anticipated, the news stirred excitement among the attendees. I observed the local newspaper publisher alongside one of his reporters, undoubtedly jotting down notes for tomorrow's headline. I'll spare you the other party particulars. It would have been enjoyable if my heart wasn't in pieces and my mind racing to find proof. About 90 minutes after the grand announcement, Margaret Williamson, the first assistant district attorney, entered, announcing Paul's desire to meet with his staff. While Paul held an elected position, Margaret served as the office's senior manager, essentially overseeing its operations. While prosecutors rotated every 4 years, Margaret remained a constant presence, revered for her integrity in the legal community. Kelly had taken the job primarily because of her. I held great respect for her. She had been married for over 3 decades to an electrician who had supported her through college and now owned a successful electrical contracting company. The couple was deeply committed to each other, serving as role models for Kelly and me. "Sorry for stealing your wife, Hogan," Margaret quipped. "Paul wants to discuss office organization once he wraps up campaigning." With that, they departed. Leaving the gathering of remaining spouses, I sought solace on the far side of the expansive pool opposite the patio where the party buzzed. A wicker swing chair hung from chains in the shadow, providing a secluded spot for contemplation. Barely 5 minutes in, my solitude was interrupted by a voice. "So this is where you're hiding," Barbara purred as she slid into the swing beside me. She positioned herself to face me, her little black dress clinging to her tan hips, suggesting allure while maintaining an air of innocence. It's telling of my state of mind that I noted this observation almost clinically. "You seem burdened," she remarked. I hesitated to discuss this with my wife's lover's daughter, no matter how attractive she was. "We've been swamped with office work, lots of audits," I offered, hoping to steer the conversation elsewhere. "Is it true?" Barbara inquired with genuine interest. "I just wrapped up my final accounting course at university. We covered forensic accounting in law enforcement. I found it fascinating," I shared, even surprising myself amidst the grief. "Really?" I questioned incredulously. "It may not sound glamorous, but essentially it's like being a detective, piecing together information from various sources to uncover the truth, especially when people try to hide it. Not everyone sees it that way," I admitted. Barbara delved into the details of what she had learned in class and why she found it captivating. I must admit, I was impressed. I've encountered interns at firms who couldn't articulate themselves as well on the subject. Focusing on her words helped me push aside her appearance and, more importantly, the simmering anger within me. I found myself embracing the role of mentor, which helped dim the emotional turmoil. "You really enjoyed the course," I observed. "You seem to have a solid grasp of the topic." Barbara blushed momentarily at the compliment. The sultry pinup persona faded, revealing a genuinely touched young woman. "I actually considered joining the FBI, but after school, Dad wants me to either pursue prosecution or join one of his friends' law firms. I'm not sure if that's what I want," she confided. "You should pursue your own aspirations, not your father's," I advised honestly, though I wasn't opposed to disrupting that idiot's plans. "I've had some experience with the FBI when audits uncovered criminal activity. They're sharp individuals," I added before Barbara could respond. Suddenly, Kelly emerged from the shadows. "So this is where you've been? No funny business?" she teased. Barbara turned to my wife with a bright smile. "We were just discussing Bob's work. It came up in our class discussion," she explained. "Well, that's Hogan for you," Kelly remarked proudly. "I remember one audit report where an employee embezzled using their boss's login. Hogan discovered that some transfers occurred while the guy was on a business trip. But the login originated from the corporate office. Most people would have stopped once the boss was implicated. Hogan kept digging. I could have nailed the employee on my first day as a lawyer. Hogan left the prosecutors with nothing to do on the case," Kelly recounted, beaming at me. This left me utterly bewildered. How could she be proud of me and profess her love while carrying on a 6-month affair with her damn boss? Seeing my expression, Kelly asked, "What's wrong, dear?" "Nothing," I replied. "Just pondering." "Well, stop it. It's a party," Kelly scolded. She barely paused before adding, "Hogan, you'll never guess what opportunity I've been offered. Paul and Margaret want me to handle some administrative tasks as I prepare for maternity leave once your project is completed. This way, there won't be any loose ends when I'm gone. I'll be working directly under Margaret." My heart skipped a beat at the thought of Kelly being away from that idiot Paul. But in the next moment, my hopes were dashed. "I'll have to travel occasionally," Kelly continued. "I'll be delivering important documents to Paul during the campaign, so I won't be actively involved. But I'll get to witness some behind-the-scenes action. It's going to be so exciting." Once again, my heart shattered. While Kelly had mentioned ending the affair to start a family, I couldn't shake the fear of her straying again, especially with the allure of the campaign trail. If she becomes pregnant, who's to say it'll be my child? Paul is roughly my size and complexion. Without a DNA test, it'd be challenging to ascertain. My anger began to stir, but I quelled it. Now wasn't the time. Barbara engaged Kelly in conversation about her new role in the campaign, leaving me sidelined. I seized the chance to compose myself. After tonight, I'll start strategizing. I needed to somehow counteract Paul's political sway, though frankly I had no clue how to do it. 2 days later, the solution arrived at my office. "Your 4 o'clock meeting is here," my administrator announced. Checking my calendar, I found no bookings. Before I could respond, Barbara entered. "Hey, Hogan," she greeted, her long auburn hair cascading over her shoulders. She wore a light sundress that accentuated her legs, with strappy sandals reaching almost to her knees. Her bosom were discreetly covered, yet the fabric hinted at allure. 2 thin straps upheld the dress, leaving her arms bare. I was speechless as she entered. "I hope you don't mind," Barbara began, shutting the door behind her. "I told Mary we had a meeting to discuss my career and Kelly's employment with my father." Politely, I rose from my chair. "Glad to see you. Just working on some reports," I said, gesturing for her to take a seat. After she sat, I followed suit. "What's on your mind?" The cheerful expression vanished from Barbara's face. "I think you know, Bob. I saw it when you talked to my father. I'm truly sorry he's tarnishing such a good guy." I was shocked. This wasn't what I anticipated. "What do you mean?" I inquired cautiously. Barbara disclosed the news about my father's affair with my wife in a blunt manner. I leaned back in my chair at the stark revelation. "Did you recently find out?" Barbara asked softly. I nodded. "I'm truly sorry." "How? When did you learn?" I questioned. "About 3 months ago," Barbara confessed. "I'm not sure when it began, but I discovered it on February 1st. I came home early that Friday and stumbled upon one of their rendezvous at our house. I had been out for lunch with a friend from school and stopped by to drop off some items and say hello. Dad inquired when I'd be back, and I said after dinner. It turned out my friend fell ill and couldn't join me. After having a snack, I returned home, where I witnessed Dad and Kelly engaging in carnal activity in our jacuzzi. I captured photos and even filmed them running undressed into the house. There was a foot of snow on the ground. "Did you take pictures of your father having physical engaging?" I asked in shock. I also pondered whether I could obtain copies of the photos, which would be extremely useful in a divorce. As if anticipating my thoughts, Barbara reached into her bag, retrieved a large envelope, and placed it on my desk. "Here are pictures from that day and several others," she said. Pausing, she grinned. "Dad installed a security system in the house. The entire exterior and several interior rooms are monitored. If you know the website and have the key fob and password, you can access it from almost anywhere. There's also a flash drive with video recordings." I was taken aback by this. Paul's daughter provided me with everything necessary to divorce and discredit her father. "Why?" I asked. The sorrowful expression on Barbara's face turned to anger as she quietly replied, "I despise him more than you ever could." I remained silent, waiting for her to speak. After a moment, she began, "Dad met Mom when she was a college student. He was an aspiring lawyer assigned to the Physical Engaging Crimes Unit in Philadelphia. Mom came to study from Ireland. Her family was wealthy but perished in the London dairy bombing. She came here to escape the chaos." Her voice softened, likely inherited from her mother. "Mom was dating some loser who slapped her so hard she ended up in intensive care." Kelly paused and placed a thick book adorned with greenery and lace on my table. "I found her diary after she passed, and she was somewhat of a submissive lover. She enjoyed being commanded by a strong man. This idiot went too far and she ended up in the hospital. My father was tasked with handling the situation. They met, he went to jail, and a year later they married. My father was always ambitious. He landed a smart, beautiful woman with an exotic accent. Mom found a protector in him. I came along a few years later. Dad wanted me to pursue gymnastics. He thought having a daughter compete in the Olympics would boost his political career. Do you know how most gymnast careers end?" I shook my head, admitting, I never considered it. Barbara grinned. "They call it the 3 Bs, bosom, backsides, and boys. I got the first one. I was pushed into cheerleading to embody the all-American girl. I didn't mind. I enjoyed performing. But by age 16, I realized I was merely a pawn in my father's ambitions. Mom knew from the start. Dad had affairs almost immediately after they wed. Mom knew and pleaded with him to stop, but she was too powerless to act. She felt trapped. Being a devout Catholic, divorce was out of the question." Barbara paused, and I allowed her a moment to gather her thoughts. After a beat, she continued, "Sometimes I wonder if her poor response to cancer treatment stemmed from a subconscious desire to die or active sabotage of her treatment. Anyway, I was by her side in the hospital when she passed. Officially, Dad went to court and won a liquidation case. He coerced the doctor into altering the time of end of life. In reality, he celebrated by having physical engaging with his assistant in her apartment. He paraded Mom as a trophy, and the press adored the story of their meeting, a heroic prosecutor rescuing a misused woman. Damn! That idiot himself misused her more than once, and I witnessed it. Why are you telling me all this? I had to ask, feeling undeserving of her revelations. Hogan, my father, he's not a very good man. After my mother passed, he concealed his affairs until I left for college. Then he began hosting meetings at home and elsewhere, not just for work, but also for some charity groups he's involved with. I know for a fact he's involved with 2 other women from these groups. One poor woman genuinely believes it's true love and plans to leave her husband. Is this what Kelly's considering? I queried. Though I grasped the gravity of what I'd heard, curiosity still nagged at me. Barbara shook her head. No, she sees it as just fun. They say power is the ultimate aphrodisiac. Kelly seems to be living proof of that. I overheard her discussing some senator they were meeting with my dad. So what's your goal here? I inquired. To her credit, Barbara met my gaze squarely as she replied, I want you to end your marriage with this betrayer. I want my father's career to be demolished to the point where he couldn't be elected dog catcher in a town full of cats. I've considered just sending my evidence to the newspapers or even the opposing party, but he has too many allies. I believe together we can make them pay. Won't it complicate your schooling? She tossed her auburn hair. No, my mother left me her inheritance as a trust fund. I haven't touched it. But if need be, I could cover the rest of my tuition and MBA and still have a comfortable cushion left. If your mother had so much money, why didn't she leave with you? She could have gone to Ireland, where your father couldn't reach. Barbara winced. She was raised Irish Catholic. Divorce was never an option. Despite everything, my mother clung to her faith until the end. That's the only reason I think her end of life was unintentional, as destruction is deemed unforgivable. I found Barbara's truthfulness undeniable. She expressed her desire to ruin her father's career, and my possession of this information didn't bode well for his aspirations. I didn't suspect it to be a trap. If Kelly and Paul wanted to ruin me, they could do so openly in court. This sort of scheme was reserved for the desperate, like me. A plan began to take shape in my mind. I needed Barbara's assistance with a few matters. At the very least, it would gauge her commitment to destroying her father. All right, I consented, but I don't want to destroy him by releasing these photos or even naming him in the divorce. Barbara looked surprised. Why not? She demanded, her face flushing with fervor, ready to launch into a speech. I halted her with a raised hand. I'm not saying we won't ruin him, but I'd rather avoid the negative press of a betrayed husband in a political scandal. Instead, I want to dismantle what he strived for all his life, erode his power and influence. And I can achieve a smooth, low-profile divorce without causing any concern. Barbara gazed at me in shock. A minute later, a cunning smile crept onto her face. What's your request? I grinned. I'll do what I excel at. Get me his financial records, personal and campaign-related. They nailed Capone on tax evasion. Having met your father, I'm confident I'll find something. And if not? She inquired. I smiled. I have another plan. For the next 3 days, Barbara and I were occupied. She installed a keystroke recorder on her father's personal laptop and home computer, also backing up his hard drive. We configured their security system to sync records to a cloud space I controlled located abroad. As for me, I refrained from monitoring Kelly's phone. With Barbara's evidence, I didn't require anything else. I activated a GPS tracker intended for parental use, primarily relying on cell towers for location unless I initiated GPS activation. I simply didn't want her interrupting me at home while I worked. The day after Barbara's initial visit, I feigned a groin injury as an excuse to avoid closeness with my wife. After learning about Paul's numerous partners, I wasn't willing to take any more risks than I unknowingly had. Plus, I doubted I could do it without my anger erupting. I also scheduled an appointment with the doctor for STI testing. Initially, nothing was detected, but some, like HIV, can take months to register antibodies. Kelly departed for the Pittsburgh conference, her excitement tinged with irritation. It was no surprise she looked forward to the trip, yet despite everything, a part of me still loved her. I could never trust her again, but my feelings remained. However, the thought of being carnal with her after what I discovered was unbearable. On Thursday morning, Kelly, packed and ready, awaited Paul and the junior lawyer joining them for the conference. I wondered if the young man knew he was their cover. "I'll be back Sunday afternoon," Kelly informed me after dropping her bag by the front door. Seated at the table, I sipped my coffee with my back to her. She embraced me from behind, her lips close to my ear. "I hope you'll feel better so we can focus on the baby," she whispered, her voice stirring memories of happier times. I fought back tears, managing to compose myself. "I'll apply ice to speed up the healing," I assured her, stroking her hand and kissing her forehead. She murmured, "I wish I didn't have to leave. It'd be better to stay home with you and be undressed all weekend." "You could always tell Evans something important came up," I suggested spontaneously, sensing a shift in her tone as she regarded me. "What's your issue with Paul?" she asked incredulously. "You seemed rude at the party, and now you speak as if you despise him." I forced myself to calm down, shrugging. "Honestly, I've seen too many arrogant idiots like Evans who think they're untouchable and the epitome of power. They're big fish in small ponds, peddling the illusion of power and manipulating people into believing it. Like that mayor in South Carolina last year. Big shot, embezzled city funds, and slept with 3 married women. Now he's in federal prison for 10 years, and they're all divorced and publicly shamed. Evans gives off the same vibe. If he gets to Washington, he'll be preying on clueless interns within a week. But eventually, his facade will crumble. And when it does, I wouldn't want to be caught in the fallout." Kelly gazed at me, taken aback. While I'd ranted about such individuals before, I'd never linked Evans with them until now. Perhaps I should have kept quiet, but releasing those feelings felt cathartic. Despite the end of our marriage, I believed it was fair to warn Kelly that I still harbored love for her, even though trust was irreparably broken. "Hogan, that's awful what you said about Paul," Kelly objected. "He's a good person who's done a lot for this district." "He's not like that." I detected a pleading undertone in her denial. Unexpectedly, the sound of a car horn outside interrupted us. "Paul's here," Kelly sighed in frustration. She shot me a look that swiftly transformed from remorse to fear. "I'll be back in 4 days," Kelly said, conciliatory. "We can discuss it then. But brace yourself, love. We have a child to focus on." She embraced me, kissing me fervently. I reciprocated with equal passion. "Have a good week," she whispered. "I love you." "I love you too," I replied. She grabbed her bag and opened the front door. "Goodbye, dear," she called over her shoulder. "Farewell, Kelly," I responded before closing the door. 30 minutes later, I departed by train for the city where Barbara and I had an appointment with the FBI. As it turned out, I didn't need to gather any evidence. I'd rate Paul Evans's embezzlement tactics as moderately clever. Barbara and I convened at her off-campus apartment to scrutinize the documents she'd extracted from his computer. Overall, his methods were fairly standard. I estimated he had about $2 million tucked away in an offshore account, at least according to the transfers. However, I couldn't confirm if it still existed as those records weren't included. Much of this money came from small donors unlikely to attract IRS attention. But why were out-of-state individuals donating to the DA's campaign? I managed to trace some to defendants whose cases had been dismissed or had received unusually lenient plea agreements. However, Barbara unearthed the biggest bombshell. Turns out she wasn't Evans's only child. Along the way, he fathered children with 2 other women. One was born 3 years before his wife's end of life, with his mother being one of his employees at the time. The 3rd child, born 8 months after his wife's passing, was from an 18-year-old hospital volunteer. Evans compensated each woman $2,000 a month as campaign consultants for poll research. Barbara nearly wrecked her apartment in a fit of rage. That fiery red hair was quite the warning sign. By the time Kelly and Paul departed, we had combed through everything in Paul's records. Some questions lingered, but we lacked the resources to delve further. So, I documented my findings and arranged a meeting with the senior FBI agent I collaborated with in the Philadelphia office. Barbara accompanied me to recount the fabricated tale we'd concocted. She claimed that after taking a forensic accounting course, she wanted to examine real documents and innocently decided to peruse her father's notes. Upon noticing discrepancies, she contacted me due to my wife's employment with her father and my experience in the field. Gary was a seasoned pro, sensing there was more to it, but we handed him a wrapped gift to avoid further inquiry. A corrupt prosecutor in his backyard, now aiming for a Senate seat, this career boost felt heaven sent. Barbara had a late class, so we hailed a cab to her place, and I walked to 30th Street Station for the train home. Thoughts of packing and leaving crossed my mind. When Kelly returned, Gary pledged to expedite the case, aiming to subpoena Evans's documents by Wednesday. Once the investigation leaked, the idiot would realize his power was ephemeral as his allies abandoned ship. Kelly called during my train ride home, citing a late dinner and likely absence from her room tonight. Sensing my distraction, she probed, and I vaguely mentioned an FBI meeting, citing ongoing investigation constraints. "This case seems to weigh on you," she remarked, seeking hints. Succumbing to temptation, I hinted at corrupt politicians, bribery, money laundering, and scandalous affairs. "Oh, you're no fun," she pouted. "Don't worry, love. Your secret's safe," I assured her. Upon returning home, I sat in awe. A decade-long marriage was ending. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I felt like a spectator watching my life fade away. Hours passed before I stirred from my reverie, realizing I needed a change. Ironically, as I mowed the lawn, a BMW pulled up. Watching Barbara emerge, her statuesque legs, wrapped in sandals reminiscent of ancient Greece, caught my eye. Her toga-like dress, semi-sheer and clinging to her curves, accentuated her allure. Long red hair framed her face, but it was her gray-green eyes and warm smile that captivated me as she approached. I shut off the engine and greeted her. "You're looking better than I expected," Barbara remarked. "I half expected to find you drowning in a bottle or contemplating a ledge." I chuckled. "Last night I entertained thoughts of both, but it had to be done," I explained. "And it serves as a distraction." "Have you seen a lawyer?" she inquired. I shrugged. "Met with one on Tuesday before they left. Documents will be ready Monday. Agreed to audit a client in Austin, leave Tuesday, and stay the full 3 weeks instead of my usual remote work." I shrugged again. "It might seem like avoiding, but I'd rather not be around when the chaos erupts." Barbara nodded knowingly. She understood the attention it would draw as the daughter of that man. "It's good you're planning ahead," she acknowledged. "It's what you're good at." She grinned. "Now I can plan too." "All right, here's my plan," Barbara announced. "I'll help you wrap up your work here, then you'll join me. We'll have some fun, maybe even get a little wild. I've got a swimsuit you'll adore." I tried to protest. "I'm still married," I pointed out, "and I don't think I'll be ready for anything anytime soon." "You need to blow off some steam before you blow a gasket," she insisted with a mischievous twinkle in her eye. "And besides, you know what they say, what's sauce for the goose is sauce for the gander." Her gaze was teasing, yet sincere. I couldn't help but laugh. In a twist of fate, we bumped into Olivia after finishing the yard work. After freshening up, we headed to a nice restaurant for a late lunch. I wasn't in the mood for revenge physical engaging, but it felt good to step out, especially with someone as sweet as Barbara. Approaching the restaurant, I spotted Olivia's car parked outside. I almost suggested to Barbara that we find another place, but I didn't. Instead, I did something totally out of character. It was a spur-of-the-moment decision. Despite all my careful planning, something inside me snapped when I saw Olivia's car in that parking lot. Casually, I embraced the red-haired beauty and guided her into the restaurant. Without much ado, I slipped the owner a tip to ensure we were seated at a specific table, somewhat secluded but still visible from certain angles. Seated, I positioned Barbara to face outward and took a seat beside her, holding her hand. "What's this about?" she asked with a sweet smile. "Not that I'm complaining," I chuckled. "Remember how I told you about finding out about my wife's affair? About her friend Olivia? Well, her car is parked right out there." Barbara erupted into laughter. "So I'm the other woman. Well, I can handle that," she joked, leaning forward to give me a soft kiss on the lips, a promise of more to come. Our food arrived, and I found myself thoroughly enjoying the moment, forgetting all about the impromptu setup as I relished Barbara's company and her witty banter. "I've never heard counting sound so naughty," she quipped, making me laugh. Glancing back, I spotted Olivia walking past us. I pointed it out to Barbara. "Oh my God," she giggled. "This is too good." Leaning in for another kiss, I felt my hand instinctively move under the table, resting on Barbara's leg. Her skin was incredibly soft, her muscles firm yet elastic. The touch sent shivers down my spine, and I was lost in the moment until Olivia's sudden outburst cut through the air. "Hogan, what the hell are you doing?" she yelled, drawing everyone's attention. "And who's this tramp you're flaunting while your wife's away? I expected better from you." I released Barbara's hand and turned to face my ex-girlfriend. "What's your problem, Liv? It's just a little carefree physical engaging before Kelly and I settle down and have a baby. And could you keep it down? People are trying to eat," I said, trying to brush off Olivia's shocked expression. "What?" she began, clearly taken aback. "Oh, come on, Liv. Kelly does the same. I'm sure she's having fun with her boss right now, and she's been at it for months. So I figured it was only fair that I seduced the boss's daughter." Olivia looked like she was about to have a heart attack. Sensing Barbara starting to giggle, I gently squeezed her hand to quiet her. "You know about Olivia?" she stuttered. "I know that I must be a faithful, clueless husband, while my wife runs around with the help of a woman I considered a close friend," I retorted with disdain. Olivia winced at the contempt in my voice. "I know Kelly wanted to try something else one last time before having a baby, like that last fling before the wedding, if it was normal for her." "What do you have against me?" I had no evidence of Kelly having affairs before Paul, but once a cheater, always a cheater, as they say. I threw my suspicion out there, wondering if Olivia was unstable enough to confirm it. She did. "Do you know about this too?" she sighed. "No, but thanks for the confirmation," I replied. Olivia paled at this. "Go away, Olivia," I said firmly. She turned and hurried away from the table. A few minutes later, we heard a commotion. It was Olivia leaving the restaurant. "Well, it was fun while it lasted," Barbara said with a slight laugh. I really wanted her to stick around longer. Her smile made me blush. "You know she's probably on the phone with your wife right now," she added. "Perhaps," I agreed. I give her 5 minutes before my phone starts ringing. But if she left now, it's a 5-hour drive back home from Pittsburgh. That gives us time for dessert and for me to pack up and head home. "It's a shame I won't get to see you in that bikini you promised." Barbara laughed again. "Oh well, maybe another time." She reached out and grabbed my shirt, pulling me closer. "You know, my semester ends in a week and a half," she murmured in my ear. "I've always wanted to see Austin." Her words barely registered as her tongue slipped into my ear. Kelly started calling me. 10 minutes after Olivia left the restaurant, I listened to a few of her enraged messages, almost finding it comical. After an hour of her relentless messages and texts, I blocked her number. I knew she might call from another phone eventually, but she was driving back from Pittsburgh, unable to simply borrow someone else's phone on the highway. When I got home, I packed up all my personal belongings, not just what I needed for the trip to Austin. I had time. 4 hours after encountering Olivia, I departed from my home, possibly for the final time. After securing a hotel room near the Philadelphia airport, I placed most of my belongings in storage until I secured permanent accommodation. I had several phone conversations with Barbara, who was out walking with a friend, due to her father bombarding her with angry messages. I rescheduled my flight to Austin for the following day and departed on Monday morning. Despite Kelly's repeated calls from different numbers, filled with tearful accusations about how I had ruined her life and career, I remained resolute. Olivia's initial outburst drew attention, leading to a comment on a blog that accurately depicted Barbara and me as players in the unfolding drama. My remark about Kelly's involvement with Paul during their weekend in Pittsburgh stirred controversy within the county's political and legal circles. For the rest of the week, I avoided most news from Philadelphia. It wasn't until Friday that I received a letter from Margaret, a senior manager in the DA's office, surprisingly apologizing for the ordeal. Margaret acknowledged Paul's extramarital affairs, but claimed ignorance about Kelly's involvement. She commended me for using legal means to seek retribution against the lawyer. The following week in the DA's office was tumultuous, with Paul attempting to deflect blame onto his daughter's rebellion influenced by her unfaithful husband. However, his arrest on Tuesday, followed by dramatic scenes at the courthouse, changed the narrative. In her letter, Margaret recounted how Paul was arrested during a meeting in his office, shocking everyone present. He was swiftly taken into custody and paraded past reporters. Margaret expressed regret for the turmoil and offered assistance, acknowledging my undeserved predicament. While part of her letter seemed aimed at damage control, I believed Margaret's sincerity stemmed from her moral and professional integrity. My plans for a discreet divorce were shattered by my impulsive encounter with Olivia. Paul's arrest garnered media attention, turning our story into headline news, characterized by romance, betrayal, and revenge. Thankfully, being out of town shielded me from the worst of the media frenzy. Moreover, booking a separate hotel room further obscured my whereabouts, frustrating attempts to track me down. However, upon checking in, I noticed reporters stationed around the hotel, hoping to catch a glimpse of me. On TV, I saw them camped outside my house, filming my relatives coming and going, while Kelly remained indoors. Barbara faced the harshest scrutiny as the daughter who betrayed her father. Despite having to attend classes and take exams, she became an easy target for the media in the initial days. Eventually, the school intervened, forcing reporters off campus for disturbing students. Additionally, 2 women who had children with Paul sought their 15 minutes of fame, adding to the media frenzy. With her final exams completed, Barbara quietly slipped away from campus and headed to the airport. Disappointed, but not entirely surprised, The media missed her absence from the graduation ceremony. As time passed, the story receded to the sidelines, resurfacing only when Paul's trial began. His guilty plea resulted in a 20-year federal sentence, sparing Barbara and me from testifying. Subsequently, the case faded from public attention, taking Barbara, Kelly, and me with it. Surprisingly, my divorce proceeded swiftly and without much drama. Kelly signed the papers and 4 days later sent a letter expressing remorse for her actions. She acknowledged her hypocrisy upon learning of her own infidelity and requested a meeting to apologize in person when circumstances permitted. She ended by expressing eternal love and good wishes before relocating to the Midwest to live with her aunt. My involvement in uncovering Paul's crimes elevated my career, earning me recognition from the FBI for analyzing his tapes. Embracing anonymity from the media, I excelled in my work in Austin, identifying not only the sought-after embezzler, but also a second perpetrator unknown at the time. My firm promoted me to lead the white-collar crime team, affectionately dubbed Hogan's Heroes by some. Working late became enjoyable, especially with the company of my new assistant, a recent college graduate eager to gain experience in forensic accounting. And that bikini looked even better strewn across the floor of my hotel room.